Hello, flat earth researchers, debaters and debunkers. I'm on Kamala Beach in Phuket at the moment. Just here behind me is a sign, no swimming. It's a rule that for the most part a lot of people follow. And there are of course the occasional few who break the rules and they go swimming. And it's dangerous to do so because it's quite rough at the moment, and there are rip currents and rip tides that will just drag you out. But it's interesting, isn't it? You know, there are rules that, for the most part, people follow and often don't question. Okay, these rules about swimming are for one's own safety. They are practical rules that will help keep you safe. Yeah. But of course, when it comes to discussing something like what this place is, where all this water came from, how this sand came to be, where we are, and of course, I doubt if you can see it at the moment, but what those stars in the sky are. And of course, with that come these rules that we are supposed to obey and adhere to when it comes to discussing or questioning what everything is. Now, of course, the rules that go for determining what the Earth is, funnily enough, mostly relate to looking up in the sky and assuming that those lights in the sky are bodies of mass that are falling through some kind of vacuous empty space in order to justify the idea that we live on a globe, and living on the outside of a spherical Earth would of course be physically impossible unless there was some force keeping us on here. So of course there are laws, not just rules, but laws made up for discussing what the Earth is and its place in the universe. And of course one of those laws is that mass attracts mass. And you know, when you think about it, laws are things that are written by people. When it comes to the natural law of physics, well, obviously there are things that happen, that occur, that can be described. But this so-called law of mass attracting mass is not a law. And it's not even something that actually happens in natural physics. It's a description, an explanation that goes with the globe Earth model. So what is a model? It is a bunch of explanations, and some of those explanations have been adopted as laws and rules that you must follow, or ways to describe certain things for this idea of a model. So of course a lot of people are stuck on this idea that the predictive nature of the so-called heliocentric globe Earth model is something that people stick to, for want of a better word, and use this predictive nature to say that that is the model, and it is the predictive nature of the model that determines it. But you've got to see it the other way around, or at least try to, if you're going to be pragmatic, scientific about the whole thing, and to realize that a model or descriptions or rules or laws are contrived and made up to fit this particular mindset. And the globe is a cultural thing. And so perhaps, having spent half my life in a different culture to the one I was raised in, has helped me see the globe culture, or the global culture, for what it is. And anyone who's spent some time looking into this will of course see that we, from those globe earth believers or proponents, we have this rigid adherence to beliefs and descriptions that appear to be very inflexible. You must obey the rules, you must obey these laws if you are to talk about the earth. Let me just put this down, hang on. And especially its place in space. So, in many cultures, they've all developed their own calendar. I mean, I still get comments that, oh, sunsets and sunrises prove the globe, or equinoxes prove the globe, and seasons prove the globe. And that is so single-minded and stubborn and bigoted, really, to only be able to think like that, and only allow other people to think like that, or not to allow, to insist that other people stick to these cultural rules and laws for a particular desired model. So here in Thailand, for example, there are many ways of following the seasons, and of course, like many other cultures, they use the lunar calendar, or just do things by the season, or a mixture of both. The seasons, the sun, the moon, even the stars, maybe. But no, there is no attempt to create a model. These things are all predicted, but it's, with the heliocentric model, what we have is this insistence that this model is of course based on the sun. And of course, the other thing that's based on the sun is the Gregorian calendar, the solar calendar, which of course most of the so-called developed world follows these days. And maybe that's a sign of so-called globalization, is when a country follows this Gregorian calendar and the new year. And of course, they go together. The Gregorian calendar, I think, was introduced, I can't remember the dates, but basically the heliocentric model, Copernicus, etc., with the Catholic Church, and the Gregorian calendar, also instigated and implemented by the Catholic Church, are, I think, no more than 100 years apart. maybe possibly 50 years apart in their introduction to, well, basically any Roman Catholic country and the rest of the world. They go hand in hand. So, you know, this is the model that we're given is one of a globe orbiting the sun to give us a year, a solar year. But of course, you can do the same with the moon. And you follow the phases and everything, and you still get a year. It still works out to be pretty much around the same. 365 days, give or take a few hours or minutes or whatever. The figures are out there. Anyone can do their research. And funnily enough, there are, you know, the moon, for example, there is a lunar equinox that usually follows the solar equinox by about a week or so, week or 2 weeks. So it's funny how some people will say, oh, the equinox proves the globe, when in fact the moon has its own equinox. And my own observations and those of other people who help put this data together have shown that both the moon and the sun appear to do the same thing across the sky, depending on where you are. So here, there's a nice shot of the moon, by the way, up through the trees there. Here in Thailand, just above the equator, not too far away, a few hundred miles from the equator. Then, you know, the moon here, if you watch it overnight, it almost goes overhead, and it flips. And so does the sun, if you follow sunspots on the sun. But if you follow sunspots in, say, the UK, and you follow the moon, or the shadow on the moon, or even craters on the moon, you watch the way it rolls or cartwheels across the sky in a kind of clockwise direction. And if you're south of the equator, then the moon will appear to rotate or roll across the sky in an anti-clockwise direction, and so will the sun. So basically, wherever you are on the Earth, whatever your location, you will see, if you could see sunspots every time you look at the sun, and you can track it throughout the day, you will see that the sun and the moon both appear to do the same thing as they travel across the sky. They follow very similar paths. So, you know, again, it's a cultural thing, isn't it? Oh, there's an aircraft taking off from the airport over there. I doubt if you can see it. You might be able to see it. It's light, yeah, in the sky. That's funny. I found that, you know, when with out of focus lights like this, I mean, that's an aircraft, but it looks very similar to a star. It depends what kind of camera you've got. But yeah, zooming in on stars, I'll try and see if there's one I can zoom in on. Oh, yeah, very difficult. Just not showing up very well. But so you see, again, you know, referring here are these rules about what you should or shouldn't do on the beach. But of course, it's up to you if you go swimming or not. It's a good idea not to. So it's a rule. But not everyone follows it. And of course, someone who questions the whole globe thing is not following the rules. They are not taking the law as gospel. And to say that it's gospel is a good word to use, because we are talking about a religion. When it comes to the globe and the heliocentric model, we are talking about a creation story. Of course, the idea is everything's moving and spinning because of a big bang, or maybe that came later as an idea to attach to this idea. And so what do we have? We have a bunch of explanations that go so far back in time that no one can actually tell. And I always laugh when people say, oh, you're denying or ignoring 2,000 years of scientific discovery and explanations. Well, it's funny, isn't it, that, you know, you've got various religions which are about 2,000 years old as well. And so, you know, we're given these stories and explanations. And how many times have you heard, explain this, explain that? And you'll explain it in a way that fits, for example, the flat Earth model, you know, the sun and the moon doing concentric circles throughout the year, etc. But they won't listen. They'll say, explain this, explain that, and they'll demand answers, and you take the time to explain that there's another way to see it or perceive it. But no, they refuse to listen. They will tell you it's a fact that the Earth is a globe going around the sun. Now, of course, why would you have to describe the Earth as a spinning globe in a heliocentric model? Well, again, it goes back to the Gregorian calendar. So here is this decision to introduce a Gregorian solar calendar and then also have a solar system model that goes with it. So, of course, if at the time it was understood that the Earth was a level plane, but you decided that the sun was at the center and for all intents and purposes not moving, although of course it's understood that it is supposed to be moving at the same time, but whatever, you know, in terms of relativity, the sun is supposed to be not moving and we're supposed to be moving around it. So of course, if the Earth remains a level plane in that sense, then of course that doesn't work. You would have a constant day on one side and a constant night on the other, or basically you'd have to have an underside. So of course the logical explanation in the heliocentric model to justify night and day is a rotating globe. It's the only thing that really fits with the presupposition of a heliocentric model. And so then we get this idea that sunrises and sunsets can only be caused by a moving, rotating, spherical Earth, because that's the model. But of course, you know, if one is to consider that it could be something else, nothing changes. Nothing changes as far as sunrises and sunsets or the predictability of where the stars and the moon or the sun is going to be at any given time. Nothing has to change. Yeah, you still get the predictability, but the Earth doesn't move. Why should it be moving? The only reason it's assumed to be moving is because of the heliocentric model, the idea that the sun is at the center. But, you know, geocentrism works as far as explaining what the sun, moon and stars are doing in relation to the Earth. Yeah, and of course we are taught that we are smart to be able to perceive it, even though we can't feel it or measure it. If you can perceive it, you're smart. If you can take yourself out of this reference frame of the Earth, and of course that's why flat earthers are accused of being stupid, because they take it at face value, what they can see. We see a flat horizon and we do not detect any movement. But of course all we have to do is look through history and these attempts to scientifically justify the model. Sure, there are many explanations that have been repeated over and over and over again until they appear to become fact, to fit the model, just explanations, but they are in no way natural law, just like it's not a natural law to not go swimming. I could go swimming if I want to, but I won't, because it's actually good advice. Yeah? But of course, some smart aleck will make a comment in the comment section that, well, you know, you should obey the laws, otherwise, you know, you wouldn't be able to find your way across the Earth, and you'd get lost if you didn't follow the coordinates. And this is it. You know, the poles and the longitude and latitude lines and the date line and the equator, they're all political things. they don't really exist, do they? You can't see longitude and latitude lines. Again, these are just decisions made by man or mankind, humans. That where should we start the longitude and latitude lines? Oh, Greenwich Mean Time, and of course it is all based on time. It's all based on time. This is the thing. Plotting coordinates is all about time, and this is why it's the solar. It's all about time, keeping time, and of course in this global society, time is very important. And this goes back to the seasons and everything. Of course, it's important to keep time, but how far do you go? You break it down into minutes and seconds and split seconds and nanoseconds, and that's just people trying to measure it. But of course, when it comes to the, again with the heliocentric model, you have this, everything's divided up into 12 months with the Gregorian calendar as well, and that fits nice and neatly into a circle. Again, there's nothing wrong with telling the time like that, either going by the sun or the moon or the seasons. It depends how broad or how finite you want to get. But there are hundreds of different ways of keeping time, depending on the culture that we are brought up in. And they all work out to be about a year. So this is the thing, it is all open to interpretation, and there's no right or wrong way. This is what is so infuriating when dealing with people who stoically believe in the globe and will not listen to any other explanation. The simple fact of the matter is that there are many, many ways of interpreting it. And if anyone can at least get to that point of understanding that this is all down to interpretation, then they will realize that that's what we've been given in our global culture, is an interpretation, a solar system, heliocentric model, interpreted by the Catholic Church along with the Gregorian calendar, given to us as a way of keeping time across the entire earth and having everyone follow this thing. And of course, time and money are very important things. They are intrinsically linked, and that's what they've got us doing. That's what they want. They want us all on the same time. It's useful, it's handy, but it doesn't mean that that is our physical reality. Our physical reality is something that is much more esoteric than these models and explanations we are given and passed off as science. So anyway, I got to go, battery's running low, but I hope this kind of has explained the issue here, that should be approached with an open and pragmatic mind rather than a bigoted, single-minded, cultural globe-head mindset. Thank you very much. Click subscribe and the bell icon if you'd like to receive notifications of new videos from Phuket Word.